In this week's episode of the Junkies Podcast, metal artist Codie Aljets shares his journey into metal art and his transformation from being a firefighter to pursuing his passion full-time. He discusses the challenges and techniques involved in creating detailed metal sculptures and the importance of mindset in overcoming obstacles. Codie also opens up about his battle with cancer and how it has shaped his perspective on life and art. He emphasizes the need to live a healthier lifestyle and not wait to pursue your passions. Codie's story is an inspiring example of resilience and determination in the face of adversity. We'll get right into it after a quick word from our supporters. Today's episode of the Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Outlaw Leather. Are you a welding enthusiast or a tradesperson in need of top-notch leather welding gear and accessories? Of course you are. You're listening to the Junkies Podcast. Look no further than Outlaw Leather. Outlaw specializes in crafting custom leather welding hoods, arm pads, bolt bags, sleever bars, tool belts, and a wide range of custom welding accessories. Each piece is handcrafted with precision and designed to withstand the toughest conditions. But that's not all. Outlaw Leather also stocks essential PPE for welding, ensuring you stay safe on the job. Plus, they have a selection of quality hand tools that you can trust. Visit outlawleather.com today to explore their extensive range of products. Whether you're a professional welder or a DIY enthusiast, Outlaw Leather has you covered. And the best part is, as a listener of the Junkies Podcast, you can use promo code ARCJunkies in the discount box at checkout to get an exclusive 15% discount on all in-stock handmade leather goods. Outlaw Leather. Elevate your welding game today. We're also brought to you by CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. They make top-notch TIG torches and consumables. CK is the only brand I trust at my school and at home for all my side work and personal projects. I just finished up a bunch of repairs on some stainless steel restaurant pieces. Since these are repairs and not fabrication, I have to fit into some tight spots and still be able to get good gas shielding and torch angles. And with the Gas Saver Kit and the Flex Lock 360 torch from CK Worldwide, neither issue is a problem. I'm able to hit all the awkward angles and still get great gas coverage. I've been using this specific torch now for over 2 years, and it's been able to handle every task that I throw in front of it. And the best part is, you can get a Flex Lock 360 in water-cooled or gas-cooled, so you can take it with you on site and out in the field. Check out the Flex Lock 360 and all the great innovations CK has at ckworldwide.com. CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys, the go-to name for maintenance welding in the most demanding environments. Today, I want to tell you about their Tartan AAA, a true game changer. With an incredible 86,000 pounds of tensile strength and 28% elongation, it's the ultimate choice for durability. The Tartan AAA features a micro-dense, moisture-resistant coating. This rod can handle even the toughest conditions, from tight spots to dirty contaminated steels. And the Tartan AAA's triple deoxidized deposits ensure low weld spatter with its excellent out-of-position capability, guaranteeing successful repairs even in the trickiest spot. But that's not all. Experience ultimate puddle visibility and effortless vertical down runs, making pass-on-pass over slag a breeze. Ideal for low to medium alloy steels, Tartan AAA is your answer when the going gets tough. And right now, you can get a free 1-pound tube of Tartan AAA when you spend $250 or more at rockmountwelding.com when you use code word AJP in the discount box at checkout. Don't settle for less. Get the job done right the first time, every time, with Rockmount. We're also brought to you by Fronius USA. Fronius is thrilled to announce 2 new products to unleash your welding potential. First up is the Fronius Dual Wire Feeder. The new WF25i gives welders the freedom to have 2 torches ready to go, each with different wire types, sizes, different welding parameters, and easily switchable at the touch of a button. No need to change wire spools or consumables between applications. Get precision wire feeding and save time without adding complexity to your day. Next is the new mobile fume extraction system, Exento. The Exento comes in a high vac and a low vac version to fit your specific welding needs. The low vac system includes a flexible extraction arm with 360-degree rotation and a flow-optimized hood for exceptional fume capture rate. The high vac system combines perfectly with the Exento torch kits to remove more than 99.9% captured fume particles at the arc to provide excellent extraction in a compact unit. Check out FroniusUSA.com for more details. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 314 of the Junkies Podcast.
You're listening to the Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
Cody, welcome to the Arc Junkies Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you reaching out. I had not seen your page before, but you do some really, really cool stuff. Like I'm really big into skulls, and I noticed you have a lot of those made out of metal. So that's kind of what immediately draw me to the type of work that you do. Just the level of detail is insane.
Yeah, I don't know why the skulls kind of came into the play. I did a donation for a cancer organization, and it was really the first time I had pushed myself. And I kind of found a way to figure out how I like that style and replicate it to look pretty realistic. And I've kind of ran with that.
Now, how long have you been doing metal art?
Full time, a little over 2 years. I kind of started honestly with just cutting saws with, plasma cutter and making trees, kind of that basic stuff. And, I've just got bigger vision. So I'm just trying to keep pushing myself farther and farther with every piece, and each piece that I'm doing, I'm kind of testing for something further down the road that I have in my mind, and just not quite sure how to make that a reality yet.
I got you. See, like professionally 2 years, but like how long overall? Like when did you start doing metal sculptures and art pieces?
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
No, I grew up in a body shop, mechanic shop and body shop. My family, put us to work early, and we had a pit frame rack that was like 40 feet long. So kind of was around it and around working with my hands a lot when I was younger. And I did go to art school in college for a period of time, and at that time decided, like, how am I gonna make any money doing art? And I'm still trying to figure that out. But I've always been artistic. I've done cakes at one point to make some side money. I did playground equipment where we like hand sculpted the concrete, and that had welding frames and stuff internally. But then it was a shotcrete that we actually sculpted. And then the metal has just always been something I've just kind of done in my garage on the side.
So what were you doing prior? So like you were just doing the playground equipment and everything prior to getting into artwork?
Yeah, I mean, the job I was doing right when I made the jump, I was a full-time firefighter EMT. I was an engineer for a fire department up here, and worked 48-96, so we'd be on shift for 2 days straight, and then you had 4 days off. And as most firefighters, in those 4 days, you kind of figure out how to fill that time to make some money and to just fill the time. 4 days off is a lot of time off.
Yeah, I know a lot of firefighters and EMTs and stuff down here, and they kind of they pick up side work as far as like I go get vitamin IVs all the time, and most of the people that administer that service or whatever, they're all like off-duty EMTs and first responders and all that.
Totally. Yeah, I have some buddies that do the same stuff.
Yeah, you got to stay busy. I mean, I would imagine this kind of beneficial to be able to work 2 days, have 4 days off, work 3 days, have 4 days off, or kind of that schedule. But that's a lot. When you're working those 2 days, I mean, you're available that entire 48-hour shift or 72-hour shift, right?
Yeah, we did 48s, and we stayed at the fire department. We're really in a rural area, but we do have a ski resort in the area that I was working. So there was a lot of stuff with that, a lot of the altitude sickness and things that we kind of talked about prior to getting on here. And it was ebb and flow on busyness, but there was days you'd come home and you'd be checked out for a day just because you'd been up all night, or if you actually had a fire, you'd be there for 24 hours prior, and then just switch gears to go home to your family, or depending on the time of the week. Sometimes my boy is 7, so they're he's either at school and the wife was gone, or is definitely a different schedule and different lifestyle to live.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the heck out of it, and I think I was a really good firefighter, to be honest with you.
So what caused the transition from being a firefighter to going into metal sculpting?
Well, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in April of 2020. And had a kind of a weird situation with that, where my chemo didn't treat me well. I'd lost like 80 pounds in like 40 days, really just rotted me away. And then got back to work, and worked almost a year. And at that time, policies were changing, and I didn't get a vaccine. and I got handed a letter with a termination date. So I didn't even work to the termination date, to be honest with you. I just thought, why am I going to wait a couple more weeks to get a paycheck? I started my LLC, and I had already kind of had that conversation with my family, obviously, to make that decision, and made that decision. And, there was a lot of perspective change. And it was like, why wait? Like, why not just send it and see what happens,
Yeah.
And I can't say it's been all awesome. I enjoy the hell out of making what I'm making. And, but it's a struggle, that's why this year I'm really trying to push to like the business side. I can make the raddest stuff I can. And maybe someday it's the raddest stuff on the planet. But if I'm just hiding in my garage, here in Gunnison, Colorado, nobody's going to ever see it, or I'm not going to make a sustainable living out of it.
Yeah, you got to be able to find a way to get that work pushed out to the masses where people can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of double edged right now. Most everything I'm making is what I want to make, which is really cool, and that's what's letting me. I think my progression has been through the roof, especially the past year. After I made that first steer skull, it just opened my eyes of like, whoa, like I can make some really crazy stuff with some really simple tools, and just be patient. A lot of it's just the time and the patience. And where the stopping point is, how far do you keep going?
Right.
I'm on a project right now that I'm 250 hours into it, and I don't have a buyer, and I can't charge all those hours, because I've done a lot of testing. I think I sent you a picture of it. It's a headdress, with a human skull. It's kind of a homage piece for a Native American thing for me, and but I want to make these big eagles. So I wanted to see how far I want to push my feather detail to see how long it's going to take to go, on a 12-foot eagle or even bigger, here in the near future. And, I can't charge all that time to a customer, because even though it's what it took to make the piece, I'm doing a lot of testing, and I'm okay with giving some of that time, because I know it's honing my craft, and, certain details and certain tools I'm making are just progressing, my future.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. I mean, there's no set way to do this. It's not like you can hop on YouTube and figure out how to do some of all this stuff, because it's custom. And then as an artist, you're kind of putting your spin on things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a lot of the stuff is just from, we were the era growing up watching, Jesse James and all these, reality TV shows. And I was always watching what the tools were laying in the background, or what the machines they had, or that technique, and some of that stuff translates over, with a simple plastic mallet and a leather bag and a wood block with a couple swoops and an anvil. You can really go a long, long way. I don't have any specialty hammers or anything. I've got body hammers is what I use a lot, because it was a cheap tool to have. And like I said, some teardrop nylon mallets that are same, like Harbor Freight stuff. And, I have tools I want to get get made, or specialty in the future, but you can start real basic and get real far.
Yeah, no, and especially, I mean, because a lot of the tooling that you're going to be work is probably custom type tooling. So you'll buy something that's designed for a specific purpose, and then kind of customize that tool for a completely different purpose. There was what was the guy's name? I think his name was Adam, with Red Steel Fabrication up in Washington, and that's kind of what they do. Is they buy specific tooling, and then they completely customize that tooling to make different textures and shapes, and just kind of reassign what that tool's actually supposed to do. Because nobody makes a custom tool for what you're doing, so you got to make it yourself. And I think as welders, we do that a lot of times. Like whether we're making a half clamp for structural steel, or dogs and wedges and all that stuff, because you can't go out and buy this stuff, so you end up making it in the shop.
Yeah, well, and especially growing up, the town I grew up in, 150 people, so you didn't have access to stuff real easily, and you made it work, or you figured it out. redneck engineering or however you want to
Right.
say it. It's kind of the same way. And like I said, on some of these other things, I'm a little nervous to bite into some of these bigger projects because I'm not sure if I can get it to the level I want it. But I can use, 31 Indian feathers or, their golden eagle feathers for this headdress to decide, okay, do I want to do 200 of these at this detail or however many a bald eagle or whatever I decide to go with has,
Yeah,
not knowing if somebody's going to buy it.
yeah, because not every single one of them has to have the same level of detail. Because I would imagine some of them, you could just detail out the bottom third of it or whatever because it's going to be covered up with something. So you really need just the ones that would be on top and exposed to everything to have the highest level of detail. You got to figure out how to layer them in there correctly to where you can get away with not dealing or detailing it out 100%, but still be able to cover that up completely with something that does have all that particular detail in it.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, the ends of the feathers or the wings and the tail feathers are the things that stand out, because I've done a couple birds that are really high detail and I have detailed all the feathers and, most of that gets covered up in the end and you don't see it. And you can be pretty good with like a grinder and different grits, different directions, use the light reflection to kind of make that work for you and, heat coloring and all that. But I also see some of these huge eagles and I'm like, God, it sure be real cool if it had a little detail, versus just all the feathers, and super clean. But that's just me, everybody does their own thing.
No, and I would imagine eagles are pretty difficult to build those out because of the level of detail that's in there. And like you were saying, the way that, different lighting hits it. And I mean, that's the hard part because if you look at something when you're detailing out metal, and a lot of people that work with metal, they know this, it looks good from one angle, it looks all polished up or clean. And then you take, a glance at a different angle, the light hits different. And you're like, man, where did all these scratches come from? Or, it's
Yep.
not what you looked at from one angle. So being able to see it from, all the different angles, that's got to make things even more difficult trying to play with lighting and all that stuff. You got to consider, where's this piece going to be on display at? What type of lighting are they going to have? Is it going to be outside, inside, or, different lights going to be reflecting off of it? Are they using uplighting or downlighting? Because that's going to matter once you get out of the shop and look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong at all. There's a lot of times I'll carry stuff outside. I've got a pretty decently lit shop, but I just work in my garage out, next to my house here. And, but yeah, you got to take it outside, especially I'm doing a lot of like brass transfers and copper transfers and then adding different layers of waxes and things like that. And it all changes so quickly, layer for layer. And like you said, is it going to be outside? My light's like some pretty white LED shop lighting. It looks different at a gallery,
Yeah. Now, that's another question I was going to ask you are you working with different mediums or is it just strictly steel or is it stainless? But you said you're adding like coppers and different things like that in there.
Yeah, I'm starting to work into the other stuff. My goal is really high detail, like I'm doing, like that skull. I'd love to do that at like 36 foot for like a roundabout and
Damn.
have like 5-foot succulents on it and vines and super high detail. So I'm trying to get into TIG. I've got one and I take some time to practice on it, but the same, like I wrote a business plan this year and that's part of my plan. And like once a week, sit with that TIG and whether I'm making something or just repetition, just trying to figure out the machine. And, there's a lot of online resources now that you can use. And, so yeah, I've got a lot of reclaimed copper, so I'm using that right now just because I have it and it was free material. But
Okay.
I've got stainless and trying to work. I think mild steel has this thing against it, kind of. I feel like in the art world,
Mm-hmm.
people want like the bronze cast, So I'm trying to make that level of detail out of mild steel, and then saying, hey, I'll level up, and then start using bronze raw, silicon bronze, and add in some of that stuff into some of these projects that I've mentioned that I just don't want to touch them till I know I can do them the level I would feel they need to be.
Yeah.
And I could just get it out. But that's just the person I am. If it's something I'm going to have my name on it or put my label on it, I want to make sure I'm stoked on it and super happy with it, you know?
Yeah, and I think incorporating different types of metals, I mean, that's just going to set the piece off a little bit more because there's only so much you can do with mild steel, and you don't want to go through and paint everything because that kind of covers up and hides a lot of details. So to being able to use different materials and figuring out a way to get those materials to bind together to where it becomes permanent, whether you're using silicon bronze or something to that effect or mechanical fasteners and you're hiding it, um, adding different types of mediums into that piece, that's really going to set it off and make it pop, especially like that headpiece that you're doing. If you're incorporating brass and copper and aluminum into that, and as well as steel and stainless and all that stuff, you can really start to change things and give it a lot more detail and a lot more natural coloring and different viewpoints of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with the copper, there's so many different colors with the heat, and the same with
Yeah.
the stainless. I've done some trout with the stainless, and small number 3 tip to get the spots on it, and a rosebud to get the gold, the gold and the browns to come out and make it more of a natural color without adding any wax or whatever.
Yeah, there was a guy when I used to be on TikTok. I used to mess around on there a little bit, but I deleted it. But there was a guy that he would do, I guess they're like little copper plates, and he'd polish the whole thing up so it was like it was copper and it was like almost like a mirrored finish. But then he'd spin it and he'd hit it with like an oxyacetylene torch, different number tips and everything. And as he's spinning it, he's kind of like just kind of touching the material with the flame and making different colors. And it kind of looked like a big spiral art. You remember like a spirograph when you were a kid? It's kind of like that, but he was using like oxyacetylene and brass and the different color combinations and everything that he could pull out of, just working off a sheet of brass or copper. It was amazing. Like I didn't even know you could do all those different colorings on brass. And it's just insane.
It's wild. And I mean, that's this cool stuff you see on some of these. Like, I'm not a social media person, but you have to be, this day and age. And I always stood away from it because I thought it was going to be like negative, but I've not had anything but like positive interaction. Like that guy, if I saw it, I'd probably message him and say, hey, like, what's your tip beyond what you showed in your video? What's your best training without buying a big expensive piece of brass or copper to do it?
Yeah. And most of the people, they're like freely willing to give all that information up, because they want to share that content. Like Facebook isn't a good social media platform for that, but like Instagram's been awesome as far as like the community, everybody building each other up and helping each other out. You're up in Colorado. How close are you from Denver area?
Like 4 hours.
Okay. There's
3.5, 4 hours, depends on the day.
Have you ever been up to the Denver airport?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You know the what they call the Denver Lily?
Yep.
Okay, that's made by Price Davis. He's out of Denver area.
Okay.
So he's like right up there in your area. So I mean, he's currently doing like massive sculptures like you're talking about. I think that one's like 40 foot tall, but he'd be somebody you could reach out to on Instagram and kind of pick his brain a little bit because he went into that full time, doing the artwork and different commission pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is amazing, and just I stayed away from Instagram longer than I probably should have. I was like the Facebook guy, and then now I've got on all of them. But yeah, everybody is willing to share. I'm sharing tools I'm using or making. You can give everybody the same tools, but everybody's stuff's going to come out a little different. So it's not like anybody's got some secret sauce. Some people are just willing to make more taps than others.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, especially like when it comes to blacksmithing work and all that stuff, or like hand forming metals, and like Frank Ledbetter, he's big on that with hammers, and he's just got like an old wooden oak stump, and he'll heat up like 1/4 inch 3/8 plate and just beat the living piss out of it with like a 5-pound hammer. And this dude's 70, right? but I mean, he'll go out there and he'll shape and sculpt these big thick chunks of material by hand with literally, like you said, everybody's got the same tools. He's just kind of using it a different way. Like nobody else is out there beating 1/4 inch and 3/8 plate with a hammer and a stump. But some of the level of detail that he's getting in some of his work, it's insane. Like how you can actually do that with just a couple of very, very simple tools.
Yeah, I mean, and you just got to try it to know if you can do it. I think I don't get what I want a lot of times on my first try, but I'm getting better at my expectation of what I am going to get on my first try.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you just got to give it a shot. And like I said, it was one project for me that went from like a single plane kind of freehand plasma cutty type, craft show stuff to now I'm trying to push like a fine art. I want to be I get a lot of compliments of like, oh, cool, you dipped a skull. And I'm like, come closer. It's double edged because I'm jumping into high enough detail. But if you can't grab the person and say, hey, come give it a look, people just walk by and think it's a skull dipped, in chrome or something.
That's kind of what it looks like, but it's not. I mean, you formed all that.
Yeah, they're all hollow. I mean, I think the last one I sent out was like 13 pounds, I did a 6'6" wide longhorn and it had, 310 feet of 1/8" cold rolled rod, just in the horns. So it weighed a little bit, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And the level of detail on it's freaking amazing.
No, I appreciate it.
That looks really cool. Now, are you still like battling cancer while you're trying to do this and like kind of going through treatments and all that? 'Cause, I mean, that's going to take a lot out of you.
No, honestly, I've been it's 2.5 years now, almost 3 years here, cancer free actually, which is amazing and very fortunate to have that. I do different preventative things like around Christmas. I did a mistletoe therapy and it knocked me on my butt for like 2 weeks. But no, I'm just battling still. My muscles atrophied, and even that far out, it's crazy how much I still feel the fatigue, and I just don't have as much energy. But I eat completely different. I try to take care of my mind differently, and just try not to have that at the forefront. Even though it's always there. And I still have to get scans, and I do heavy blood tests every 3 to 6 months, depends on what my last test kind of showed. But so far so good, so I'm just trying to live healthier. And like I said, more of it, I think, we carry more than what we think we do internally. I was kind of one of those guys that just, put your head down and get through it. And no matter what came up, you just put your head down and go through it. And, my stuff was environmental. I had colorectal. My primary tumor was in my rectum. Not actually in my colon. But I'm here and trying to do rad art. And like I said before, it was the perspective change. I didn't, even when I left the hospital, they said, I think I had like 8% chance to live 5 years, and I didn't want to be, as you notice, I don't even know how long I've been cancer free. I don't try not to be that person. Like I'm 1 year survivor. I'm like, no, I'm 43 this year.
Yeah.
I'm about to be 44. Somebody told me at one point, and I wish I could thank them because I don't remember who it was, but I didn't want it to define me. And they basically said it doesn't define you, but it was a very defining moment in my life. And that really stood with me a lot,
Yeah.
And just trying to show people that, you can turn something like that into a positive and, maybe push somebody to maybe not wait, whether that's to do what they want to do and their passion or go get checked, I had blood in my stool, for anybody listening. If you've got something like that, I was told I had a hemorrhoid and went to get a hemorrhoid fixed. And I was told I had stage 4 cancer. And I waited like a year plus from the time I was told I had a hemorrhoid to the time I got it fixed, because I was in the middle of building our home that we live in now. We were living in an RV, so, don't wait, go get checked and follow your passion.
Yeah. No, and it's scary. So, I mean, you're probably like early or late 30s at the time.
I was 2 weeks before my 40th birthday. Damn. Yeah. And like, we were supposed to go on a trip to like Baja and go surfing and do something real rad. We don't do big trips typically. And instead I was immediately sent to, a hospital in Denver that was like top 5 for my stuff. And then like a gauntlet, like I think before I was 40, I had a port, It was crazy how quick it all went in the process, and it was scary as hell.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was 2016, no, 2015, I got diagnosed with stage 4 skin cancer. And like, I didn't know, like I went on a hunting trip. I came back. I told my wife, I was like, hey, check my back for ticks. And she goes, well, you don't have it. Cause like I could see everything else. I was like, check my back. I can't see it. And so she's like, you don't have any ticks, but this mole kind of looks funny. So I was like, yeah, let me go get that checked out. So I made an appointment at the dermatologist, and they called me up like a week later and left a voicemail. They're like, you need to get back in the office now. And so within 2 weeks, they're like, you got stage 4 cancer. I had to go see what are they, oncologists and all that stuff. They're talking about radiation and chemo and all that other, all that fun stuff. And they ended up and did a massive excision on my back where it was. I mean, they pulled out probably a good 4 inches long and about 2.5 inches wide chunk. And it was like,
Wow.
all I could see was like this little discolored mole on my back, probably, smaller than a dime, probably half the size of a dime. And they made that big incision, and they also did what the hell is it? Where they inject you and they put you in the tube or whatever.
Yeah, like a CT scan.
Yeah, they did like a CT scan with contrast. Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah,
and
that stuff's nasty.
Yeah, it's not great. And then they ended up having to take a lymph node out because I guess that portion of my back was draining to that lymph node, so they had to pull that lymph node out as well. And since then, I've had stage 4, stage 3, and stage 1. So I got to go back in every 6 months and get cut up on and all that stuff. But like you just keep pushing through. Luckily, I didn't have to go through chemo and radiation, but I mean, that just like depletes you as a person. I've known several close friends that they get on that treatment and it's really not working for them. And, it's literally killing them even faster.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a local friend here. He's almost 2 years, or it'll be 2 years this year. But I mean, the treatment killed him, and I know several people that way, and it's unfortunate,
Now, you said that the chemo wasn't working for you. What route did you take?
Well, I think I'll be on, a lot of it, I think, was diet. I hired like a cancer specific nutritionist, um, and pretty much cut all carbs and red meats and dairy and, all the stuff out, which sucks. Midwest boy, I like my meat and potatoes.
Right.
But after that, I did 90 milligrams of THC for 90 days. And I went back to my doctors and said, scan me. And they didn't really want to do it. And I said, scan me. And my tumor had gone from 15 centimeters, like almost 6 inches, to less than an inch, to less than 3 centimeters.
Damn.
So, I mean, I had radiation also. I did real short term, like high dose radiation. But the same, I didn't have, the results that they wanted from that. I just wasn't processing the chemo, is what they said. Some fancy name, but I don't, I try not to, I don't know what it was. They just said, you can't do this anymore. And then went through the whole process. And then they're like, oh, the chemo worked, But I think that 90 milligram, luckily I'm in a state that I could do that. And I wasn't working. It was COVID, at the time. So I wasn't able to be in the ambulance or doing any of that stuff. So I just took the chance, and it worked. And at least in my mind, I'd tell anybody, like, and probably for you, take a process or a route that you are confident in, and don't change that until you have a reason to change that. Don't question it. Just, mindset and that stuff is everything, I think.
Yeah.
And even in trying to run your own business, it all translates. It's just different circumstances and heavier situations.
Do you think that like your experience or your exposures as, when you were with the fire department, do you think that could have been the underlying cause of your cancer? Only because I've talked to a lot of firefighters. We used to go down, I would take my students for like fire extinguisher training all the time. And they had mentioned like different exposures. So I guess a lot of firefighters, like they'll shave their heads. They keep very short facial hair and stuff like that. Because when they come back from a fire, I guess all the carcinogens from houses burning or cars burning or anything like that, all those, because there's wood and plastics and all kinds of stuff. I guess it attaches to your hair follicles and kind of seeps into your skin that way. So when they come back from a fire, I guess they'll take like a cold shower first and just kind of close the pores up and get everything off before they take an actual hot shower and, like get clean.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right on all that, but I don't think for me that was probably the scenario. I mean, they said environmental. I just hadn't been in that enough. In our area, I was a trainer for live fire for the state, but all that stuff was pretty much Class A. It didn't have the chemicals that new furniture has in it and all that stuff. Our vinyl floors and all that nasty crap. But I did grow up in a body shop and a mechanic shop with a lot of chemicals, and it was a farm community. I'm sure there was Roundup everywhere. I'm sure somehow that had something to do with it. I also had injured my pelvis when I was young, so one of my doctors said it definitely could have been something with the blood flow from an injury that I had from when I was like 13. They said it was in me more than 10 years easily, with the size and the extent. I had 28 lymph nodes taken out. And then I had 4 spots on my liver, and they only took 2, which was weird to me. When you're in there, you might as well just take the 2 other spots. But
Yeah, especially since the liver's an organ that'll just like completely regrow itself. Like take as much as you need, it'll come back. That's one of the only organs that'll kind of reproduce like a lizard's tail, just grows back completely.
Yeah, so I don't, now we look at these 2 spots. We still got those 2 spots. Yeah,
Because you didn't cut them out last time you were in there.
Like I said, I don't know. I was lucky enough to get laparoscopic stuff, so my recovery was better than it could have been. But I don't know. I'm super thankful for the surgeons, and I got to trust that they did their best they could. And I'm still here to be talking to you today, so I'm not gonna second guess it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you were able to make a full recovery. Do you think that mentality going through that has kind of like given you a little bit more mental fortitude to keep going with the artwork projects and stuff that you're doing?
Totally. I mean, I had planned on, growing a business before I, jumped into it fully. Um, but I'm just dead set on it. I've got one chance, and, every day is not guaranteed. And, like I'm doing a cabinet job right now, a custom cabinet for a local salon. I do some fill-in stuff. I got guys that come by and want to, trailer fixed or things like that. But I'm trying not to do any of that. I could stay busy all year long doing handrails and things like that, but it's not what I want to be doing specifically. And I'm just going to try to make it happen, and going to keep pushing. And, I do truly think I'm just getting started. These visions I have in my mind are so much beyond what I'm making now. But I got to figure out how to make a living at it first to be able to jump into these bigger projects that might take 6 months or a year. I can't just not bringing any money in. I'm not in that type of situation,
Yeah, that's the hard part, especially being like a one person operation, putting in all those hours, and you're like, okay, this job's going to take me like 6 months. It'll pay off once it's done. But what do I do as far as like income and, materials and different tooling and stuff while I'm working on that project? You don't have enough income coming in to kind of like keep supporting what you're doing. So you got to be like really, really vigilant and price everything correctly so that job does pay off once it's done and you're not losing your ass in the process when it comes to labor and materials.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate enough, like I said, I work out of a decent sized garage, or at least I got tall ceilings in it. So that helps a lot. We sold some property and a tiny house that I had built a couple hours south of us here to give myself some, a window of, opportunity and to buy some of the tools I needed. I'd bought most of my stuff is from like estate sales or yard sales, marketplace junkie for sure.
I love that place when it works out.
Yeah, when it works out, but otherwise, you can squeeze in 6 months of time in 4 months if you're willing to work all night.
Yeah.
And I can come in and help make dinner. I try to make dinner for, to take some of that load off of my wife and hang out with my boy. And, he goes to bed at 8:30, and I'll go back out for 6-7 more hours sometimes. If I can do it physically, I will. Some nights I just know I got to just lay down and go to sleep. But otherwise, I'll just lay there and think about how I should be working or how I'm going to be doing what I'm trying to do. And I might as well just go out there and try to get through it, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
does that, you find it easier in the evenings doing that stuff? I mean, it's a little bit cooler outside. You don't have like all the distractions because like you're up, everybody else is asleep, and you can kind of focus and tune into what you're doing and just, keep super focused on the task at hand.
100%. I mean, my wife travels for work sometimes, so I take my boy to school, pick him up, take him to the activities, and do all that, and then just work where I can in between as much as I can. Um, but yeah, I think you know, you just got to keep pushing through it and taking that time and making it happen.
Yeah, that's I know. Tom Patz is he's cold hard art on Instagram, and that's kind of the schedule he keeps. I think he starts his day at like 8 p.m. And he'll work the night shift intentionally, and like that's the way that he's kind of been doing it for years. He loves that schedule just because all the distractions of the day. You're not getting pinged for emails and text messages and DMs, and nobody's calling. After 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. the next morning, and then he goes to bed, and then then his phone's blowing up, but he can just put it on silent.
Yeah, I mean, and I did insulate my walls, and I was considerate. Got properties, so my neighbors aren't right next door, but they're close enough. But I can jam my tunes, and I'm about 75 feet from the house, so the family doesn't hear me grinding and banging. And it's always cold here, so the nighttime,
Oh yeah,
it's even in the summer, it's in the 30s at night
damn.
typically. We're like 70s and 30s, depending.
Okay,
But like, right now in the mornings, it could be -10, you know.
damn,
Um,
it's chilly.
but like I said, I've got an advantage of being able to do it here because if it was in town or somewhere else or at a different place, I wouldn't jump back in my truck at 8:30 and go. Where here it's just like, okay, make dinner, keep your work clothes on, help put the boy to bed. My wife goes to bed early, and yeah, put your head down, and you don't have to look for the phone, and you're not distracted by like, oh, I've got to make a social media post or you know where I do fail in that is I don't want to stop to film, which I'm trying to get better
Hmm.
about, like process and putting myself out there more, like with that. So trying to get like a camera to dedicate to film because I love my tunes. I know you've said that before too. Like if I'm in the zone, I got, it can be all over the board what I'm listening to, but I got to have loud tunes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Everlast Welders. Are you looking to upgrade your current setup? Maybe you need a true multi-process machine. Or you'd like to have the ability to perform other processes in the shop, but you just don't have access to the right equipment. Well, Everlast has your solution. They have a machine for every budget, process, and skill level. And all Everlast IGBT inverter machines come with a stock 5-year warranty. Check out a full list of their machines and full capabilities at everlastwelders.com. And as always, if you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, be sure to type in Arc Junkies in the comments section and get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, it really depends on what I'm working on. If I'm like during the fabrication process, I'll listen to some old school country or like outlaw country. But then when I get into, or, like even rap music or heavy metal, but then once I get into the welding, it's like completely change the playlist to, do all my tack and fit up and weld out, because then I really got to kind of like super focus on the detail part of it. The chopping and the measuring and all that stuff. I can kind of put myself on autopilot and do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of all the same. I can go from, Ward Davis to old school hip hop to heavy metal to classic. It yeah, I think music says a lot, and it can do a lot for you depending on what you're feeling. I can almost tell sometimes when I'm not into it because my piece shows it. I don't know. The music is such a part of, even from when I was younger, the radio goes on first. And sometimes in the morning it's NPR or news or whatever. And sometimes you just jump right into the heavy stuff.
Yeah, it really depends on your mood.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely this year, or I guess last year, I should say, more than any, I've listened to more podcasts than I ever have in my life. And a lot of that's just trying to gain as much knowledge in the industry as I can. I've done sales and a whole bunch of different jobs and, in different industries. And, being in the art game is a whole different level. Like there's so many things that I didn't know that I didn't know. Um, I hired a coach last year and she's taught me a lot and just listening to, it's not even artists on these podcasts, listen to the industry guys. And I was a manufacturer's rep for years and had a territory. So I know that side of the industry, and you can pick pieces from all that. And, for me, it was just the residual of like, all right, man, you're not doing your business and you're not getting yourself out there. So that's why I've, started reaching out and, sent you an email and said, I want to be on your podcast as well. And I've got goals that I want to meet. And like I said before, sitting in my garage and making, I could have the coolest thing ever, but nobody sees it. It's not going to get me anywhere.
Yeah, it's a nice corner piece in the garage.
Yeah, it's got a lot of metal dust on it. Dang.
So now, where do you go about like finding your inspiration? I mean, I've noticed a lot of the stuff that you do is all like, animal based type stuff. I mean, is that kind of where you pull all your inspiration is from nature?
Yeah. So I don't. It kind of varies. I do reclaim stuff too. So sometimes it's just a piece that, if something jumps out at me, running, when I go to the metal yard, that's like an hour from me, I take the time to walk through they let us still walk through the scrap yard and pick out of there. So sometimes it's the pieces that dictate it. And other times it's just, I've got probably 4 or 5 notebooks now that I just kind of carry around. Like I keep one in my truck and one in my house and one in my shop. And I just constantly have ideas that I'm drawing and putting out there. And, sometimes if somebody says, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And I said, well, do you want me to build it for you? And, that's the inspiration. But right now I'm just kind of making like I said, these pieces with parts and pieces of other projects that I want to do that are going to kind of evolve into the bigger stuff. I think I want to go bigger. I don't know how feasible that is, or once I get into that, and there's a lot more overhead when you get into bigger shop, and you got to buy, like you said, retooling and all that. Where I'm buying hammers from yard sales and stuff, and they're old mining hammers, and then I'm like die grinding them into the shape that I want them to, or just doing it really basic and cheap so I can get these pieces going. But yeah, I mean, I'm outside a lot. Last week I had like 160 elk in my backyard. So living in the mountains, we're constantly out there, and I definitely lean towards more like Western style stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some smaller bisons, and I did a bighorn sheep, and hawks and birds and things like that. But I've got like Harley Davidson tank that somebody airbrushed that I bought off Marketplace from some guy in like New York, and it's got like eagle wings on the side of it already airbrushed. So I'm gonna make that a Harley Davidson eagle. Why not use what somebody else already made really cool and make it even cooler?
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. That's the that hawk that you did. I guess it was made out of nails.
Yeah,
That
I
thing
thought they were
looks super
horseshoe
cool.
nails, but they're masonry nails.
Mhm.
And it was definitely a bucket. Like I was picking at a sale and got all excited about this $5 bucket, and the lady like upcharged me in the end because she saw me all excited about it. But I didn't really care. Kind of had that. That was one of those things where I had the vision, and it took me so much longer. It was over 1,000 nails, and every nail I had like ground the fletchings into.
I was gonna say, how'd you like go through and grind all those things? Because they don't look like. I mean, if you tell somebody it's a masonry nail, you could probably see it. But if you're just looking at it, you really can't tell that's a mason. Did you do all that with a cutoff wheel?
Yep, Folgers cutoff wheel. I definitely laid them on the table a lot. Some of those are, welded in patterns of 2. Some of them are welded in 3s and different lengths of them. So that took a lot of time to get the flow because each side had to be opposite if you really wanted to lay the correct way. And you think you made enough, and then you're making, 500 more sets of feathers, and you're like, oh crap, I'm only halfway through this. But it was same. It was just one of those things where I had an idea, and I just, when I see it in my head so clearly, I've got to get it out, or I'm frustrated with myself, and I know I need to make it financially with it, but to be honest, I don't even care if I get undercut a little bit on some of that. If I got what I wanted, I usually always give people more than what they ask for. And they know that, I usually am the losing end on, if I look at an hourly wage, but, I think if I'm just trying to put out consistency and, that detail level and everything I'm doing, whether it's new steel, like the skulls, or, reclaim stuff. I've got somebody that wants me to do like a 4-foot seahorse, with reclaims, and they want it to be realistic, so, I've got piles of that stuff that I just kind of toss around and lay, whether pickaxes for vertebrae and, things like that. I've definitely kind of Sanford and Son around my garage for all that stuff.
Now, have you ever started a project and got like halfway through it and just completely scrapped it, or have you just figured out a way to keep persevering and pushing through and kind of bring that piece to life?
No, I haven't had any that I've scrapped. I've had to, like, this Native American thing I'm doing, I've had to put it aside quite a few times, because of, like, I had Christmas commissions and tried to, capitalize on Valentine's Day and things like that. But no, I've had things change. I'll buy a certain scrap and say like, oh, it's going to be this. And, as I get into it, I think, well, that's sure not going to work the way I wanted it to work, or not going to look the way I thought it was because of the finish on it. Or, you've talked on other episodes about just how much it takes to clean certain things. That kind of changes the direction sometimes, but I don't know. I think once I start something and have it going, I'm dead set on finishing it, and getting my, what I want out of it,
Mm-hmm. What do you do when you ever get super frustrated working on a piece? Things just aren't working out right.
Oh yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
what do you do in that situation?
I try to go ride my dirt bike, or like, I got a snow bike, it's
Okay.
just a dirt bike with tracks on it. So lately I've been trying to get out on that. I do have like a workout, like a weight rack in there. So sometimes I'll just change the music and go take a half hour and lift some weights for a little bit, and, or just get outside. Sometimes it's just, oh, I need some sunlight. It's a nice day, get outside, and I can't always keep my doors open. So that's a tough thing, but, I don't know. I try not to. I get frustrated pretty easy on some stuff, but I'm real quick to get over it. So I can get real frustrated. I kind of talk shit to myself, and like, saying like, all right, dude, like, why you can do this, you can get through it. Maybe just put that piece aside and just start fresh again. Once you manipulate something so much, it stretches, or gets wrinkles in it, and you just aren't going to get what you want in the end. Yeah, I don't know. I just keep going. I mean, how it is. It's just no different than, your cancer thing, where it's just part of your life now, and you're choosing, you didn't choose that, but it's part of it. But you're choosing just to get through it and to keep moving forward. I think you can dwell on it, or you can just move forward on it, and usually that's when I have those like revelations of like, oh, why was that so hard? When I just started over and look at it a little differently, or sometimes just flipping the piece over and working it from, most of my stuff's worked from the backside. But sometimes just flipping over and looking at it different, you're like, oh crap, I should have been doing it this way, or I should have grabbed this 4-inch ball that I've got welded onto a piece of rebar and used that instead of the end of this anvil, just to get the shape that but I think that just goes back to being willing to fail to get what I want out of it, and know that, like I said, my progression in 2 years has been amazing to me, to see, and it's just been super fun. So I think that's part of it. Like, even though it's frustrating, it's really fun when you get that like aha moment. You know, I've got like a old fist casting that I did in art school, and you know, I fist bump it. That's because nobody's around. That's like my thing on my wall. You know, like, or high five myself at like 2 a.m. You know,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
but
you got
it's
to
super
celebrate those
rad.
victories.
Yeah, it's just super fun. You know, I've never had a job that I've enjoyed most of my jobs in my life, but I've never had a job that I like am excited to see what's coming next, because I don't even know some days. You know, sometimes you just have those days where you're just like, oh crap, that was amazing. I learned so much and didn't expect that today.
What was the first piece you ever like worked on? Once you started like 2 years ago, once you got into this, what was the first piece that kind of kicked this whole thing off?
I did a saw, and I cut it with a plasma cutter, like an old hand saw, and just did like the old tree. You know, you see people do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it in my style for like a Christmas party, and people were like, "Oh, that's cool!" Like, you know, and um, kind of just started going from there. You know, I was doing handrails and I was doing residential stuff. I did some reclaimed foot rails for like a bar up valley here, and um, but then the overhead was just getting a lot for a one man show. You know, I'd get payouts and I was doing it the right way, but you know, one project got kicked back like 6 months, and then I had 20 foot of handrails sitting in my garage that was all 3/4 balusters and not easy to move. And you know, I just knew it wasn't where I wanted to be. Um, and there was an organization here in the valley called Tough Enough to Wear Pink, and they help people with. It was a breast cancer organization, and now they help all cancers, and they have like a vehicle that you can take to your treatments, and they help you with you know, meals and so on. And I knew the lady that ran it, and I saw her in the parking lot of Tractor Supply, and I went for it and said, "Hey, I want to make you something." And I gave her a really shitty drawing of a steer skull with a succulent, and I said, "Look, I'm not taking a lot of time to draw it because I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I guarantee it's going to be awesome." Um, and I spent about 100 hours making that thing for a donation, and it went for a good amount of money. And I saw it. You know, it was a very emotionally healing piece for me. I mean, I cried during it, I laughed during it, I had those like, oh crap moments. And uh, you know, I'm very proud of that piece. But I look back at it now, I'm like, man, that thing's kind of dumpy. It's not, you know, I'm very proud of it, but just to see where my level's gone. And you know, each one of these, you know, specifically the steer skulls, I've made multiples now. You know, there's always a piece that I want to get better on the next one,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a detail, and um, focus on that detail since I've kind of figured out the other parts, you know.
Yeah, those
But
steer heads are like, they're pretty rad, man. They're very, very realistic.
yeah, no, I think I've got, like I said, the way I finish it, and you know, I reheat them all when they're fully finished. I bring the scale all the way back out, and then a process of a couple different grits of sandpaper. You know, and I think that's where my body shop growing up helps a lot, because I do see that scratch pattern, and I do leave some of that, but it's all. Um, I don't always use orbital. You know, I'll do directional patterns and things like that. Even on like my bighorn sheep that I did, it was all hollow horns and hand hammered just like I do, but you know, it was all directionally scratched towards the end of the horns to know that that's how they realistically are. And you know, I'm at that level where even this human skull, I bought like an anatomy skull for like a school, because I want to make it right. You know, it's all anatomically correct. It's all got all the plates on it and everything. Um, you know, like I said, and they're fully finished 360
Mm-hmm.
to the same degree. If somebody wanted to put them in an entryway or an open air situation, you know, the backs are fully finished with the teeth and the skull plates and everything as well. So
Now, do you coat them with anything, or do you just let them naturally kind of patina it? So, like, if it's going to be outside, I mean, it's going to go, especially all the steel and stuff, it's going to rust quite a bit.
yeah,
You'd mentioned wax earlier. Are you coating with like a wax or something, or oils or clear coat or anything?
Yeah, I do. It kind of depends. These, I wouldn't do them as high detail and put this outside. I don't know. I mean, I've got stuff sitting outside my shop that I've tested with all my different stuff, but I do, I use a lot of Sculpt Nouveau products. They have different waxes, and some of them are colors and some of them are clears, and they're like a UV, like a 10-year rated UV. Um, and then I honestly, I reached out to Kevin Stone. I'm sure you know him.
Yeah.
He does the huge dragons, and
Yeah, he's out of Canada.
yeah, now he's in Vegas. Um, and same, just like, hey, what are you putting on this dragon that's steel? Because his T-Rex was stainless
Mhm.
and the dragon was like, and he used Penetrol, like it's like a flow, like a paint flow product. Um, and I thought, well, hell, if he's confident enough to put it on a 80-foot dragon that shoots fire, I'm sure as heck going to put it on my little
Right.
skulls. um, and it's honestly a pretty inexpensive product, but it's pretty bomber. It leaves a good gloss, and it does take a while to dry, which in a metal shop is kind of, it's not a paint shop. That's tough to keep anything going, uh, and have a nice clear finish on it. But it works on all the metals, and like I said, it depends on what states. Certain states are trying to kick it because of VOC or whatever it is in it. Like California, you can't get it or stuff like that. But I don't know. I've been really happy with it, and I think it shows a great depth. To be honest, I hope that doesn't make it hard for me to get Penetrol out there.
No, just stock up on it now. That way you
Yeah,
continuously got it.
yeah. Well, and it comes
Yeah,
in like
that's the hard part is like all the stuff that actually works, all the good stuff. It's like, yeah, that's bad for you. It's bad for the environment. You got to use this other stuff, and it just doesn't end up working like the good shit. Like a lot of the stuff that we used
Yeah.
growing up, like you can't get it anymore because apparently it was like super harmful for you.
Yeah, well, and I know a lot of people use like automotive clears on their steel. Um, but growing up in that industry, I know that clear is not going to last 5 years before it starts to peel. And if there's any sort of moisture in there, you're going to start seeing that moisture below the surface. And I don't, maybe the Penetrol will too, but I've definitely got chunks of bare steel sitting out my garage, outside my garage in a wintry weather for the last year and a half, and it's still clean.
Mhm.
So that's where I want to jump into some of the other materials, and that's why I haven't, because a lot of my stuff I want to do is public stuff and bigger sculpture, and not so much like all animal things. I've definitely got like mental health ones that I want to do for myself. And being in around the first responder industry, there's a lot of suicide, and living in the mountains, there's unfortunately a lot of suicides in the mountains and a lot of mental health problems. Um, and I do want to make some more meaningful pieces that I want to put out there, and they're going to have to be stainless and bronze to last. You know what I mean? Not that it wouldn't be super cool to make them in steel. But I think I got to make that leap.
Yeah. How soon do you think you're going to start working into that?
I kind of want to jump to like a 12-foot eagle right now. I should be, one of my things this year was I'm going to try to do some festivals, like art festivals, like with a booth and stuff. So I can't have big stuff in a booth. So I'm really in a toss up, to be honest, since I don't have like commissions, because I can just go whatever direction I want. I don't want to be a booth guy, because I just want to spend the time with my family or the time in my shop versus sitting at a booth, but I think it's part of the way to get out there. But, I also think a 12-foot eagle would really catch people's eye too,
Yeah, that would definitely, that's definitely a showstopper.
Well, and I already have it in my mind. Like, it's definitely going to be like the wing tips touching the water. Like, we've all seen that photo where it's like head on, and just the tips are touching the water. And, I think it'd be super rad to have that and build the mount under, to where it is in like a pond or a fountain or something. and do like a mix of Corten and stainless and some silicon bronze to, just make it really pop, but have it in that big arc, to where it's almost I've even thought of making it like an archway you could walk under, and it like tips being like water on each
That
side.
is a big, this is going to be bigger than 12 foot.
I don't, I say 12 foot, but who knows,
Are you going to start off with like reclaimed metal, or are you going to use all new for that?
That one I think will probably be new. I mean, I'll probably make a stainless frame on the inside instead of like rebar and stuff. I always think of the long term of that stuff. And just going back to like, it's my name on it, and it's not like a team's name or a label of like, yeah, it looks great the first year, and like 3 years later it looks dumpy, so I think if I'm going to go into that level, I got to just make the jump, and I guess I'll learn to TIG on a 12-foot Eagle if I make that leap.
There you go.
A lot of that can be hidden, you know what I mean? So it's not like they got to be pretty, but they do need to be structurally sound on something that big.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, I could learn just as much in some small, cast scale types things too, but that's also then my skills got to grow really quick if I'm going to leave. I try not to grind a lot of stuff. I try to like either hand make that texture, or like if you see my bison on my website or anything, it's all MIG. Like I like set my machine real weird and like drape it down to where it looks like fur, but it's got to stick well, plus the look that I'm trying to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I think on the smaller ones, that's a whole different realm to jump into on detail.
Yeah, that's David Madero is really big into that, using the MIG kind of. I guess his dad used to do oxyacetylene, welding, and that's how he would do a lot of his textures. And then David discovered MIG welding and started, putting the settings to where they're not great for welding, but they make some really cool textures on the pieces that he's doing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if I got to do something structurally, I got to, and I've been in a project that I'm doing everything the way you're not supposed to, I've definitely got to do a couple practice passes to get my mind thinking back to, all right, lay your pool and my stick out and my speed. I mean, sometimes my stick out's like 2 inches,
Oh, damn.
to get, but then I got to come in real hot to get my gas in there,
Right.
but, to get that drape over and the laydown that I'm looking for, I start pretty far out, and the same, some of these holes in the skulls or things like that, it gets really tight to where you can't really see what you're doing in there. And I think some of the other processes could help me with that, now that they're making clear cups and things like that, getting in there, I could probably save myself a lot of spatter cleanup. I keep a flat chisel on my apron all the time, and I'm constantly, just cleaning as I go, and a lot of that's just because you're not doing the right setting,
Mm-hmm.
so you get worse. But cover stuff with leather and so on to try to keep it clean as you go there.
Yeah, get you a what is it, the CK Worldwide Flex Lock 360, because that entire head will spin 360 degrees, so that'll allow you to get into some really weird spots. And then Edge Welding Cups just came out with a number 32 cup, so it's a 2-inch diameter Pyrex cup. So like you can stick your tungsten way out and get into super tight, awkward spots and positions with it. I mean, it's not
Yes.
meant for what you're doing, but I mean, you could take that, and that's something that would allow you different access to get into tighter spots. Like, you said you're going to do a lot of stainless and TIG this stuff together. Well, you've got a lot of unconventional fit ups when you're putting something like that together.
Totally. And filling holes and stuff like that, to where that's where I'm not confident on my TIG to like fill a gap, or where the MIG you can just sit and keep kind of popping it. I tend to get too hot when I'm trying to TIG right now, but I use a lot of thin materials on some of this stuff, considering shipping,
Mm-hmm.
and by the time you work harden it by hammering it 5,000 times, thin material is pretty damn strong. You could hit these skulls pretty hard, and I don't think they would dent or anything,
Yeah, you can use like if you got holes and big gaps and stuff to fill, just use like dissimilar metal. So if if you're working on a steel piece, put a piece of copper or aluminum behind it. And if you're working on aluminum, put like a piece of steel or stainless behind it. And that'll just kind of provide a backing to support that weld while you're filling it in. And it also acts as like a good heat sink. And then when you get done, you just smack it with a hammer and it pops right off.
Oh,
But
cool.
I used to fill in like bolt holes, like either myself or somebody else would drill a bolt hole in the wrong spot, and you just clamp a piece of, dissimilar metal behind it and fill that hole in. And I mean, it practically, on the side where you have that plate or that backing, that heat sink, it just kind of acts like just like a stop. Everything fuses in nice and smooth. So it's real clean on the back, so it doesn't over penetrate either.
Yeah, I'll have to play with that because, like I said, I definitely have done some stuff. Like the last skull I did my vine, and it was all like finish nails to 1/8 inch rod, like all pretty small stuff, So I don't know if I'm right or not, but it seems much harder to try to learn on some really thin, fragile stuff that just you can just burn it off so fast.
Yeah, I typically start people off on thicker material, and then once you learn how to manipulate, control that puddle and, your arc length and all the important stuff, then you can start dropping down to thinner materials, because with thinner materials, you got to move so much faster. Thicker materials gives you time to kind of think about and consider what you're doing. But with thin material, you really don't have that. You got to hit that pedal, you got to shit and get, you got to move through there pretty quick. You can't slow down. Otherwise it just bakes the material and either melts it or blows a hole in it. So
I'm learning that real quick.
Yeah.
and I mean, like I said, I think it's just my mentality of knowing what I'm going to try to push towards. And I just always try to get to that level quicker. But I need to go back to the basics. Sometimes you just got to remind yourself of like, all right, take an hour and do a lap joint and just practice, don't jump straight to razor blades and trying to TIG razor blades together,
Mm-hmm.
And you might even have met those guys, Austin and Bo, that run weld.com. They're coming the end of March. And that was part of the thing. I'd reached out to Austin because he's doing, art type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that flame painting and things like that. And I just said, hey, man, like, I want some of your knowledge, and I'm a hands-on person. Like, do you want to come here and teach me some TIG and some technique? And, I'll show you some of my tricks and my tools and some of that, and kind of have a trade of knowledge in person.
Yeah, because he just did that deer skull, like that European looking mount.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're both Austin and Bo. They're super cool dudes. They're coming down to my shop in April.
Nice, yeah. So they'll be here the end of March. So they'll be here right before you. So it's kind of just that same deal of like, I would have never thought it would have ever happened. By just sending a message and saying, hey, here's where I'm at, what I'm trying to do. And here's the story I'm trying to push. And, it sounds like they're coming, or we've got it all planned. So, I'm hoping that'll kick it off. And that's also part of why I'm in a toss up of like, what's next? Cause I want to have something really rad for them here, that we can do. But I also want something that maybe we can finish out, pretty quickly, which I think will end up being that like Harley Davidson Eagle. I'll prep all that stuff, and we can TIG all that stainless and that Corten on that smaller one while they're here.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. You guys I would imagine they're obviously gonna film a lot of that stuff, but I mean that'd be good for your Instagram page as well. Putting that stuff out, doing collaborations.
Yeah, I got to do something different because I just don't get any traction on there at all. I mean, I try to like follow the algorithms and listen to the coach people on there and so on and so on, but I guess I'm just not hitting the mark yet.
Yeah, it's all about reels these days. Anytime you put a still frame photo up, like, it doesn't get much traction at all. I think they're slowly, or not slowly, I mean that's all they're doing is pushing videos. They're trying to compete with TikTok. So like still frame photos and stuff like that, they're out. So I mean, but you could take a bunch of still frame photos, put some music behind it, and do a reel that way, of just some random shots of what you're working on, different stages of the process, and then kind of lace all that together with a soundtrack behind it and put that out.
Yeah, I've been trying to do more, and do like tutorials and even show more of like the tools I'm using. I bought like a light that has like a stand, and I'm really trying to focus on it. I'm just so old school. Like I hear my grandpa in my head, like put your damn phone down and go to work,
Put your phone away. Yeah.
That was just kind of the way I grew up. So like beyond changing my music and stuff, I really try to just not have that in my mind during the day. And it does, but it is part of our society now. And, for some of the goals that I have, I like one goal this year is I want to, and I might be too late, but like, I want to have a piece at Fab Tech, and I don't really know why Fab Tech is where I want to be, but like, I think there's something to be said about, having the respect of your peers in your industry beyond, customers too, working in different environments with teams and stuff like that. This is a lot different than that's ever been, cause you're by yourself all the time. Um, so
Yeah.
like, to get those manufacturers, you gotta have a presence, and you gotta, I'm sending messages to ESOB and Edge Welding Cups and Benchmark Abrasives and all these people to, uh, you know, try to get a little spotlight and use their platforms to, to be honest. But it's just different ways to get your name out there. And, I think you have to these day and age. And, I live, like I said, at 8,000 feet in a town of maybe 10,000 people. I think it's like 7,500. So it's not like there's just a bustling metropolis of areas to go here and get myself out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like you're up in there in the middle of God's country. Like you got to figure out a way to kind of get a bigger reach.
Yeah, I mean, like I did a show near Denver, and like to deliver my stuff was like 3.5 hours, and which was great. But I had to go the night before and get a hotel for the opening, and that all kind of adds up, and that's all part of it. So, but you have to get accepted to those too. You have to, I'm trying to get, I'm applying for grants and for contests, and I'm like I said, just really trying to put it out there this year. I'm a little, like a little over. This is my third year, I guess, and it's kind of a make or break. I've got to start making more consistent money, and um, part of that's producing more. I need to produce more than I do, but um, if I can get the right leads and get the right momentum, then sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. But you can only do so much as like a one person operation. I mean, there's only you're one individual. There's only so many hours in the day. I mean, it's kind of it's more of a relay than a sprint, or a marathon than a sprint.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of go back to that, like you can sleep when you're dead.
Right.
So if I can keep going, and I'm in that mode, there's certain times I'm like, I just want to spend the evening with my family, and even if I'm in the mode, I shut down the shop and go spend the time with the family. But, yeah, I just always want to be able to get more out there. And yeah, I think that's just the drive and the motivation. I think having, a boy that's young and seeing I don't think he understands the effort and the drive that it takes to do this. And I want to show, I think when he's older, he will understand, why dad was making dinner in his work clothes and going back to work, or, things like that. And once again, time's not guaranteed. When you leave this place, if this metal stuff will be around a lot longer than I am, and at least somebody will be able to keep enjoying it long after I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's you're
Yeah.
leaving a legacy. That's for sure. That steel's
Yeah.
going to last a long time. Stainless even longer.
Well, and there's a lot of people making some really rad stuff out there. I mean, there's so much cool metal art going on in the world right now. It's more competitive in my mind than it was 5 years ago by far. And I think that's where the social medias came into play. You're seeing more of them that you weren't seeing from rural areas. You got like the Ivan Eilers in Michigan, and, like, I know he got out in different platforms and stuff as well, but, he's doing some super rad stuff in a small area.
Yeah. Yeah. His kinetic pieces are really cool. How I mean, that's just a whole different type,
Yeah, I mean, I get people ask me if I want to get involved in any of that kind of stuff, and my mind just doesn't quite think that way.
Mhm.
Like, I'm obviously mechanically minded, growing up around it, and I'm building a shop truck now and working on an old small block 350 and all that. But I don't. part of my stuff within the reclaimed is hard to get here. Like I mentioned, my metal yard's, 60 miles away through the mountains. And that's the only scrap yard that's within, another 3 hours. And anything like reclaimed in the mountains is expensive now.
Yeah.
People want $10 for like a broken handle shovel. Like
it's almost better just to buy a new one and break it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some stuff you look on, you're like, well, how much could I get a shipment of these from China for, and I don't like thinking that way, but it's hard. I mean, I've got like 100 shovel heads collected right now for like, 10-foot pine cones. And it's taken me a long time to get enough to where I felt like I could even start it, it takes, sometimes you have these ideas and it takes a year to even come up with the material.
I want to see that. That's I'm kind of mentally building that in my brain. A 10-foot pine cone made out of shovels.
Yeah, spade type shovels, and I'm going to do a little detail on them, but not a whole lot. But yeah, I wanted like something that'd be cool, probably laying on its side.
Yeah.
But I like to do the stuff to where it makes you look at it and kind of wonder. I like to hide my welds if I can. On certain things. And I also love it when you have to, whether it's my piece or looking at something where you have to like figure out how the hell they
how'd they build
together.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. Or what is it? Like, oh, I recognize that shape, but what is that?
No, that's super.
I love that. And like I said, I love seeing that stuff. My family gets so tired. We travel by camper and like 2-lane highways, and I'm constantly like, flipping a U-turn. Oh, there's treasures, and it's like a pile of shovels on somebody's fence that I go offer them $20 or something,
Yeah.
But that's the fun of it too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a place down here, like right where I live, and it's like a very rural area. And this guy's got this fence that probably goes, I don't know, probably about 100 yards. And every fence post he has out there, he's got a different type of shovel head sticking at the top of it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I love that stuff. You see that, like the Cadillac Ranch in Texas where it's just all the Cadillacs sticking out and, things like that. But I'll probably be there someday. Right now my wife keeps telling me I got to sell it. She wants it all at first. And then she's like, oh, no, we need the money. You better sell it.
Yeah.
So I've actually got my first skull that I made. The people that bought it at the auction, it was crazy. They gave it back to me, like paid a ton of money for it and then handed it back knowing my story and stuff like that. And then the only other one I have is like made out of all these cylinder valves from motors that came from one of my family's mechanic shops, and they closed it down. It was the original one. And I went and picked the parts for him, had to keep something from that one.
No, that's super cool.
So it's like 100. It's like 100 car valves, and it's 2 dandelions that are wishers, people call them, kind of blowing in the wind that, they're like 4 and 6 feet tall,
Oh yeah. I think I've seen that on your Instagram page.
Yeah. But then the same, I couldn't just leave the valve. So I had to cut like all the slices in the ends of them. And so, just cause I knew the light would come through differently on it,
Detail them out a bit.
Yeah. But it, takes forever.
Yeah. Right. That's the thing a lot of people don't realize is how much work and effort, actually goes into making a piece like that.
Yeah, you got to just brush it off. I had somebody the other day, I'm getting into pretty high dollar pieces, jumping around like the $10,000 realm here. And, sometimes people are like, don't sell that for any less than like $500. I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that. But I mean, like you said, my last client that bought my Longhorn, I didn't sell it for as much as I wanted, but they also want another piece out of it. And the husband had just done a weekend long knife making course. Is his only time he'd ever tried to forge or anything like that. So he had a really rudimentary idea of the effort, but that put it into perspective for him when you're like, yeah, I've got 170 hours into that. And he, and he's like, oh crap, I couldn't even make a knife out of a railroad spike.
Right.
So, you just got to find the right clientele. Like I said, I think for me, I want to, I'm trying to kind of find salt of the earth people that know what it takes to make a living and have, the money to spend what they want to get, and, stay in that higher realm. And like I said, it's not so much for the money. I could make more money selling 50, $80 tree saws on Etsy, you know what I mean? More consistently. It's just not where I want to be.
Yeah. I mean, you want to do something that you're happy with doing, you don't want to do it just for the sake of making money. I mean, you're out there trying to challenge yourself and, make every piece a little bit different and continuously grow. And you can't do that by just working on what sells. I mean, you got to kind of take that risk.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think I don't have many pieces right now, which is a good thing, but everything that I've made that I think people want to see, it doesn't sell. And everything that I've made just to make has all, some of it hasn't sold right away, but it's all sold, and I think that speaks volumes of what what your pieces are. They're a part of you, and if you're feeling it, you're going to make a better piece, and other people are going to feel it. And if you're just making plasma table art, and that's what you're feeling, then great, make it. Do whatever. I'm not a computer guy, so I couldn't do the first thing of setting up a plasma table, but I do have ideas that are repetitive and can fill that gap, kind of, I guess I'll say. I've been looking at like an arc droid to have like that extra hand that I could draw myself,
Mm-hmm.
But that's just me. Like I said, I don't want my stuff to be repetitive on a plasma. If it's going to be, I want it to be my hand drawn drawing. I think it just shows up different in the end result.
Yeah, it's got a lot more you in it instead of, something digital.
100%. But like I said, there's some super rad digital stuff coming out. The layering pieces, people are layering 200 layers to make the skulls and, animals and stuff like that. It's all really rad, and I respect it. It's just not where the lane I want to be in.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's got their own deal, and there's going to be specific people out there looking for the type of work that you're putting out, because it is done by hand, step by step, every single process, whether it's reclaimed or new. You're the one, manually cutting it out and beating it and shaping it and forming it and polishing it and detailing it. And, it shows a lot of, attention to detail and pride in your work.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I mean, like I said, I think I'm super fired up on doing this, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And, like you said, I hope there's those people out there. I need to find them.
Yeah, you will.
But I'm just going to keep pushing and, like I said, putting myself out there differently like this, and trying to get out in the face of people more. And, eventually, I don't really care if people know me around the world. I truly don't. I just care that I can do this and support my family in the end. And, right now that's not the reality. And I'm just super thankful that my wife and son and everybody around me supports it. I think that they've all seen my progression, and, it's going to happen. I'm just trying to, I've only been doing it a short time, so I'm trying to beat time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, 2 years is still relatively young.
Yeah. Oh shit. I think I got like 600 followers on Instagram and stuff. Nobody knows who I am.
Not yet. Not yet.
And like I said, if it stays 600 followers or whatever I'm at, and I continually get business, then I'm fine with that. I'll still keep sharing my stuff. I'll still keep pushing myself farther. Like I said, right now it's just super fun to see what I can get. And I've just got to kind of make some smart time and financial moves so I don't put my family in a hurt here.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
I'm on all the platforms. Codie Aljets Art, CODIE ALJETS. And it's the same, CodieAljetsArt.com. And I've got the website. I don't have a lot of stuff available, but if anybody's interested, please, reach out. And my favorite projects are the things that people have an idea for, but they're not quite sure of what they want. And being able to bring that stuff to reality and like seeing their faces is just super cool. You don't, that's where the one thing is tough is you don't get to see a lot of the reaction, you know what I mean? But the few I have got to see or give to people and, blow their minds away of like, oh crap, like that, that's just super awesome and rewarding.
Yeah, that's got to be the cool part, kind of like teaching when that moment clicks and they finally get it. Like that's what makes it all worth it. So when you can present that piece to the client and they're super stoked about getting it, just watching that reaction versus like putting it in a
Yeah.
box and shipping it and saying, well, I hope they're happy with it. And you get a text back or, maybe a DM. Hey man, super cool.
Yeah. No, like I got to give Ward Davis, I don't know if you know him at all, country music singer. And I got to give him a thank you gift last year on stage, and he was like crying and stuff, and he's like, "Why did you give this to me before I got to sing?" And it's just super cool to be able to touch people with something that you're just making in your garage. And I don't like to say I'm just like messing around in my garage, but I feel like I'm just kind of messing around in my garage, which is rad.
Yeah, that's the cool part of it.
But I'm not taking it for granted. That's for sure. It could go away. And I talk about like getting a side job and, maybe go back to the fire service if I decided. But I've let most of my stuff lapse now and all my certs there. But, any of that time I'm giving to somebody else isn't time towards my goal and, my future. So right now I'm just going to keep trugging along.
Yeah, that's all you can do. I mean, it's going to take time. It's going to take effort, but I mean, in the end, it's going to be worth it. And I mean, you're doing something that you're enjoying, which is freaking awesome to be able to go out there and do something that you enjoy every day versus, having to go somewhere that you don't like every single day. Like life's too short to put up with a bunch of bullshit, to hate the job that you got. So, I mean, it's super cool that you can go out there and kind of like you said, go screw around in the garage, and build cool shit and get paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, the paid part is the hard part.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on that part.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've always enjoyed my jobs, but this is just super cool because it is myself. And like I said, I truly think I'm just getting rolling here and scratching the surface at where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, man, I wish you nothing but the best. I think it'll be cool. I can't wait to see the pine cone and the eagle and everything else that you got going on.
I mean, I've got projects drawn for probably 4 years already. It's just getting them all done.
Yeah.
That's the juggle, right? And the space, like right now it's, been super cold. So it's hard for me to do stuff with doors open or want to be outside welding, when it's -20 or something. It's been a mild winter, but I also heat my garage. So I try to, I've got to pay for all that and try to consider everything. But as it warms up, I'm definitely going to jump into some of those bigger ones. I even bought like an old junky backhoe that I'm rebuilding so I can like pick stuff and move it,
You're going to need it.
Just trying to invest in, right now, pretty much everything's going right back to my shop. I've just got like a Plimo or, a fume extractor and, things like that to try to give myself a leg up for my health and, being able to recirculate my heat and consider all that in the business side of it.
Yeah, the fume extractor is definitely a plus. We just got one over at the school because I have at the source fume extraction for each booth, but I also have like a testing area in the back, and I don't have a fume extractor for the instructor's booth. So we picked up the new one from Fronius, the Exento.
Nice.
And that thing is awesome, dude. And like it sucks in like the best possible way for a fume extractor. You get that thing, anywhere near smoke, and it's sucking everything up. And it moves around the shop super easy, very portable.
I got a Plimo vent or remove the fume is what I went with.
Okay.
And I got like a wall mount one and it's got like the auto, but I haven't got it fully. I got to get an electrician here. It's all up and together, but I don't have it. I just got it. It was kind of like my end of the year purchase for my business.
Okay. You got to get it wired up still.
Yeah. But once again, just, it's partially on me and partially just where I'm at of getting people here. But yeah, I'm excited to get that rolling because I wear a respirator a lot and that sucks.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah.
Look into the Papper systems too. The one from Optrail. I picked one of those up because I do a lot of grinding and cutting, with like doing weld samples and stuff like that. So I switched it because I've got the beard. I can't wear a respirator, so I switched over to the Swiss Air system.
Yep.
And it's super awesome because I can use it with facial hair, and I can use it whether I'm welding or grinding. You just take one set of headgear off, or safety glasses. You put those on. So it's not like most of the welding papper systems where you have to like leave the hood attachment on. Like I can go from a hood to a face shield to just safety glasses to whatever, and it's super lightweight, and it lasts. I think it like 8 hours on a charge. It's super functional.
Red. No, I'll definitely look into that. I mean, there's so many things out there. It's just so hard. And even I probably wouldn't have, it's definitely a health thing. So that's why I put my money towards that.
Yep. That's exactly why I did it. I was like, I can't keep huffing this shit in, man. Like, and at the source fume extraction works great. But, if you're using a grinder or something like that, it's throwing fumes one way and sparks the other, and like metal dust, and it just gets everywhere, and you can see it around the shop that the fume extractor is not catching all of it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see the difference of like the dust factor, because I go to work out on my workout bench and I'm like, oh crap, like, I better
blow it off first.
Yeah, and then you don't want to work out because then there's a bunch of crap in the air,
Yeah.
Like, so we'll see, but one step at a time here, and I'm not trying to be too impatient about it all, and like I said, just reinvesting in it, and I've got a full hand on myself and the support of my family to make that happen. And we're just going to keep making cool stuff.
Yeah, man. That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on the podcast and sharing your story, man. And I hope to, stay in contact with you and keep seeing all the cool stuff that you're building. Go ahead, plug your socials and your website one more time.
It's Codie Aljets Art, and that's the same .com.
Fantastic, man. Again, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time and coming out on the show.
Yeah, Jason, thank you. I'm glad that it worked out.
Yes, sir. All right, ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation between Codie and I. Be sure to give him a follow on Instagram and check out his website. He does some truly amazing work. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.